you know, I'm not going to say faith in tomorrow. I'm not going to put that burden on you, but, you know, where you see some fire today.
You're really asking me very difficult questions.
I came a long way to ask you I came a long way to ask you these questions.
I'm generally very disillusioned with today's scene. And maybe that's a factor of my age, and I'm sorry about that. But fortunately or unfortunately, I was born in 1963, and because of that, I was a witness to at least two periods that were extremely exciting in the kind of music we talked about, heavy rock, heavy metal. One was the 1970s, and the other one was the early 1980s. And having lived through that time and having that time influence my life significantly, I find it extremely difficult to find something that's equally inspiring nowadays. Now, maybe that makes me sound old, but it's you're asking me for my personal opinion, and unfortunately that's it. I wish it was different, honestly. But sometimes I listen to these modern bands, and they're all perfect beyond description. They're much more perfect than any bands. We all wanted to be so perfect in the early 80s, but we couldn't. Nowadays, even the youngest musicians are so perfect. But I sometimes wonder, is that really the goal of heavy music? Maybe it's the goal of jazz, but heavy music to me is always anarchy, revolution, energy. And I miss that in all that technical perfection, and the technical perfection is even enhanced by computer technology in the studio. And I wonder, is that really the purpose of heavy music? To me, it's not. To me, heavy music is passion, as a fire. And if you play a mistake, so fuck it. But unfortunately, nowadays, the albums I hear, they're produced to death. And most of it is recorded directly into the computer. I like albums where you actually hear the air between the amp and the microphone, where you hear the drums screeching, the screws on the drums. But you don't hear that anymore. So there's a couple of modern bands that I like Wounded Kings or Scorpion Child, or Orchid. But what are these bands doing? They're basically recreating music that existed in the 70s. It's not really modern metal per se. Maybe that reflects poorly on me, or it reflects poorly on the current metal scene. I don't know. I'm not the person to make that judgment. But that's the way I see it, and I miss it hugely. I miss hearing albums with fire, albums with some kind of dirt, with imperfections, but with perfection in passion. I miss that. There's a competition going on between guitar players, how many notes you can play in a minute, and how perfect you can play that, and how fast and how complicated your albums can be. Look at Obscura, for example, who are a phenomenal band, but what is the purpose? Is it the Olympics of heavy metal? Or are we talking about heavy metal? That's the question I pose to myself. Maybe just I'm an old fart, I know that. But I've spent an entire life in this scene, and I'm very passionate about it. And I wish some of the young people playing music nowadays would just fucking thrash a guitar from time to time. Throw over a stack of Marshalls like I did it. Because that's really the essence of that music. Not playing 10,000 notes perfectly. I have huge respect for that, but that's not all there is to it. If you want to do that, go to a university. But that's not, to me personally, there's no place for that on a heavy metal stage. That's why I went into heavy metal, you know.
As you mentioned, being a little kid when Deep Purple played here in Zurich, and just seeing on television the news reports of mayhem and fires and bottles smashed everywhere, and the kids just running wild after they heard this stuff.
I said that many times tonight. My opinion is just my opinion. And my opinion is heavily shaped by my fucked up youth. I know other people had a much more perfect youth and probably have a much more balanced view of how things should be. I grew up very fanatically, very radically, and of course that translates into the way I approach music. So everything I say is, of course, to be taken with a grain of salt. I know people are not Tom Warrior, and that's fine. But that's why heavy metal attracted me, because there was some anarchy in it. If I wanted perfection, I could have gone to some a party, a political party, where everything's by the book, or I could have become a tax advisor or a banker, because everything there is by the book, and the more perfect you are, the better you are. I went to heavy metal because there's anarchy, and because there you can actually smash a fucking guitar. And I really miss that. I miss when heavy metal was like that. It's become as sterile as so many other things now in our times. And I think that's a shame. I mean, even punk nowadays is fucking designed. What's wrong with people?